a celebration. I mean, it was just difficult getting people to come inside here. Good evening. My name is Bongani Ngurunga. I'm the director of the Johannesburg Institute for Advanced Study here at UJ. I just want to acknowledge especially Neil Operosa, who's the HOD of Finance and Investment Management, who are our co-hosts, as well as Jonathan Bond Publishers. And welcome all of you. This is, I mean, JAS has hosted a lot of events, a lot of book launches, but I think this one is really special, I have to say. And I'll tell you, I've read some of the chapters in this book, Black Text, Bedding or Wood. I mean, what is amazing about the chapters is that they are so personal, but at the same time, the story that they tell is so universal. I mean, I was reading, for instance, Dudu's story about Slindile and Smongile. And in my own family, I was already thinking, who's the Smongile and the Slindile there? I mean, that's how universal the story is. Or Tandukolo's story, and that happens to a lot of us. I mean, when you are leaving home, your mother tells you, and you know what she is talking about. Yes. She doesn't have to tell you. You know, for a long time, I worked in government. I never knew my mother knew that I get paid on the 15th. But on the 14th in the evening, I would get a very friendly call, and she wouldn't mention that she was calling about money, but I knew. And when I came to UJ and I started getting paid on the 25th, and every time on the 24th I would get a friendly call from my mother. And she would say, Mfana Wami, and I knew what Mfana Wami means. So this is how amazing these stories that are told here. I don't want to take a lot of your time because it is already 30 minutes late. I just want to do just a few introductions of our panel. I'll start with you, Nick Mhlongo. Now, Nick is the editor of this amazing book, but for us at JAS, he's a family member. He was a fellow, a writing fellow at JAS last year. Yes, I mean, so we've made it our responsibility that whatever the fellows do, wherever they are in the world, we try to support it. And so when we saw this book, despite the fact that it is an interesting book in its own right, but we saw that Nick Mhlongo was involved, as well as Litutuma, that I'll talk about in a minute. I told my colleague Reshmi Singh, I said, please call Nick and tell him that we are ready to launch the book whenever he is, wherever he is, and he's available to do it. So we have Nick Mhlongo, who's the editor of the book. Then we have Dudu Busani Dube, that we hope will join JAS very soon as a writing fellow. We are working hard, I mean, trying to convince her to do that, hopefully to be part of the family soon. And then there's Tandukolo Jiga. He and I come a long way, come a very long way. You know, there was a point in my life when I lost weight. And then I discovered today that Tandukolo was born in 1982. I said all of that weight, losing weight, when a kid was born in 1982. Because I was a spokesperson to a president, and he used to ask me difficult questions all the time, but he's a friend, it's all in the family. And as I said, we have Neil Operosa, who's the head of Department of Finance and Investment Management here at the University of Johannesburg. Thank you very much, sir, for co-hosting, and actually they have contributed more money. There wouldn't be wine there without me. So we really have to give credit where it is due. We have a man with the most amazing name, Litutu Malingana, and I do not know how you translate that. I mean, we have to leave it at that, Litutu Malingana, and that's it. And you know what is amazing about Litutu is that he doesn't use his surname anymore. I've noticed that he's Litutu Malingana, full stop. You don't have to know the surname, you do not have to know anything about him other than that he is Litutu Malingana. But I mean, he spent a month at the Johannesburg Institute for Advanced Study. Was it last year? Yeah, that was last year. It's a beautiful place, by the way. I invite all of you to come and see the place. And if we have interesting ideas, want to write something, we have a very beautiful place. I mean, I think it's one of the few places at the University of Johannesburg where you can write, and when you are tired, there's a beautiful swimming pool. you can swim. I mean, I don't know how many places are there. I mean, when you go to work, you can just decide to swim. I haven't done it yet. Hopefully I'll do it soon. And then the last person is Mary Ann, who's a lecturer in the same department, but is also a student doing a master's degree on black text. How is that? I mean, this is just really amazing. And so she will be giving us her own perspective on black text that I think most black people really know. Come the end of the month, up to you, Nick, and to you, Nick. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the intro. I'm sure my voice can carry. I was just having some throat, but I'm sure my voice can carry. I think instead of sitting here and having this discussion and me asking the questions, I would like to just go ask a short question. And once that's done, I think the audience will probably have many questions to ask. I mean, from my side, as I think anything I want to say is, guys, you all deal with all emotional, whatever about this topic, so let's just keep it civil. This is an academic institution at the end of the day, so let's just bear that in mind. I think it's important to me today. So let me start with Nick on the far side. What made you write this book? What got you to the point you say, listen, I have to sit down and I have to spend this time?
Okay. Good evening. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the Department of Finance and Investment. Yeah, because you are going to invest in this book, I know. The special thanks also to JIAS. They've done a lot. Actually, what Bongani is saying, I call him Bongani, yes, but that's between us. So, JIAS is one of the few places in South Africa that cares about literature. And I'm so glad that I'm part of JIAS. As you see, there's a book coming up, and which I wrote at JIAS because they've got the nicest place where I used to dive into the I can swim. And another thing, protocols first. This is a family affair, so my sister is here. I haven't seen her actually in 15 years or 20 years, but my sister is here. The whole family is here. So whatever I speak, if I talk bad about family, you'll definitely. Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. But coming to your question, what made me write this book? I didn't write this book. These beautiful people that you see here that are brought with me are the people that made this book to be what it is today. It wouldn't have been a success if I didn't meet Dudu, if I didn't meet and Dudu. You know, there would never have been a book, actually. So these people are the people that made the book to be what it is. Why I'm saying this is because my understanding of black text, before I even tried to compile the essays as they are, was very limited and very narrow-minded. But these people helped me to understand and to heal. And that's what I'm hoping that the book will help you, the audience, because you're going to buy the book anyway, to heal and understand. Because it's the book that will make us understand each other. You know, whether you're black, whether you're white, Indian, colored according to South African stratification, I think somehow, somewhere, there's a point where we have to, we meet as people. and there's a point where we have to understand one another as a nation. So I didn't write this book alone. So I'm not the only author. These are the authors that actually I think they will talk their stories, and I'm going to talk my story. But how it started when every year, I've realized that every year, I follow trend quite a lot. You know, I read whatever, I might not comment in Facebook, I might not comment in things people post on social media. But there was a trend at some point, almost every year, towards this, around this time, people commenting, I'm not going home. No? I'm not going home, and then where is home? Because every black person have got roots in the rural areas, as far as I understand. And then people say, I'm not going home. Why? I'll be expected to fix the roof. And this, yeah. There's a funeral. I'm not going there. I'd rather send money because I'll end up spending 20,000 that I've never budgeted for. So it was a trend. So I realized that actually I'm not the only one suffering from this, you know, from these family challenges. Actually, almost every black person is suffering from these challenges, you know. So there should be a debate. And then I met Annie of Jonathan Ball. Actually, honestly, she's the one who firstly approached me. Nick, don't you think we should write something about this? Because it's a social phenomenon that needs to be talked about by almost every black person, actually. And then I talked to Jonathan Ball, said, okay, we got a budget for this. We don't know, we're not sure whether it will succeed or not, but let's try it out. Right at the moment, the book is one of the top 10 sellers. Internationally.
Top sellers before it was even launched.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just happy that we have established a debate. And it's not a conclusive debate. It's a debate that is carried by every one of us. People that read the book, for instance, they comment a lot. Today we're at 702 with you, Xavier Makaiza. We didn't even have much time to talk about it because people were just, they say it was one of the first time that the phone was ringing. Oh yeah, yeah. People wanted to talk. So that's the point.
Let's move on. I'm not going down the line this road. It's easier. And I must apologize. I'm terrible with names.
And
that's just, that's the easy one. I mean, it's heat. Just ask the cameraman. No, ask somebody else. So it was nice. Do you see there's a cultural thing?
No, it's not. It's not a cultural thing.
I mean, why am I asking the question? Because Nick referred to the burden. And if you go to all around the world, you pay. There's sandwich tax, and there's this tax. And you go to Southeast Asia, you see these houses where everybody sits. So my question is it cultural or is it an actual burden? I mean, why would you pay?
It's not. It's not a cultural thing. It's not even a black thing. It's a thing that we are dealing with because of where we come from, because of our past. And I don't think there's white tax. Is there white tax? White people have to pay, white people have to pay for their siblings to go to school. You have to fix your mother's house. You have to. Is it?
Let me use the energy saying it's the right things. In general, I think when we talk about those things, in most instances, it becomes more and more because life becomes expensive.
Okay.
And now it's different. So people, if you have a cottage, you say to the kids, well, come and stay in the cottage. And then when you retire, you say, well, now you've got children, you move to the house and I'll move to the cottage. So I think it's just a little different disguise. It's not like every month you have to send money. You just pay.
Well, yeah, no, we don't even have the quotation. It's totally different. I mean, you come to a shack, there's 20 of you in one shack.
No, I mean,
and out. So it's not a cultural thing. It's not a black thing or a Zulu or Xhosa or Tswana thing. It's very much a South African thing or an African thing, where black people are generally poor, and there hasn't been a thing that has been done to get us out of poverty, and so we have to do it ourselves. So it's not even it's just us trying to to dig up other people from the hole so that our great-grandchildren will not still be in a position where they have to educate their siblings. So it's South Africa. It's apartheid. It's poverty. It is what brought us here.
Let me ask here. I mean, when you got brought up, I know the chair of the meeting referred to, when you get brought up, how do you get brought up that you have to do it, or that there's this thing that's out there? It's like you say, it's South African. In your upbringing, do you get brought up to understand the fact that when you finished, there's the extended family? It's a difficult question.
No, it's not. Actually, from what Dudu is saying, you see it, you feel it, you live it. It's there. You don't have to be taught. Because of the structural problems we've had, black tax is man-made. It's because we don't have intergenerational wealth. And that was taken away from many black people because of the apartheid laws, lands being taken away from the people, the land thing, 1913 Land Act, and it's a result of colonialism. It would not have, if we were all competing fairly. My grandparents, tell a story that, my grandfather specifically told me a story when I was still young. They grew up, they had land, they had cows, they were farming. But we all remember what happened when, black people could not be commercial farmers. That took away wealth. So black tax, to me, is a direct result of that. So people now needed to start living. They needed to start pulling the others up into, if a child needs to go to university, tertiary education, to get tertiary education, the community will club together, a church, society here and there. This boy is quite smart. We believe he can go and do ABC. And I think, in some of these essays, which is a nice thing, it's different people with different experiences. But there's a common thread in all of that, this black tax is existing today, and because of what has happened in this country. And that is why we are writing to have this discussion, to find answers as to how do we eradicate it. How do we, have fair playing fields? I don't want my kids to grow up and work backwards. I want them to, when they start working, they must work for themselves. They must not be thinking about, my roof, and my dad's roof is leaking, etc. So it's a direct result of not having intergenerational wealth, and that was man-made. And in my chapter, I actually demonstrate that through just telling simple stories of, because I believe that when I finished at university, it would have been great for me to just think about, what car do I want to buy? Where do I want to go? Instead of thinking about my mother's loans that she took so that I can go through tertiary. So as a result, there were many other people that actually contributed towards my education. That in the end, when my mother says, funeka siyothenga igusha for so and so, we must go buy it cheap for and so and so, and you're like, but why? You know, she's your friend or whatever. She'll say, no, you don't know what she did for you. So it's an intergenerational thing that was being made, basically.
Yes. Let me skip and go to Marianne. The reason why I asked Marianne first is because in the department we've actually started a research unit where the concept of black tax is the focus area of the department. And how did we get to this point? We got to this point because in the last colloquium we had for our master students, we had quite a few students who actually came and said, listen, we want to do our research unit. We said, well, okay, let's just make this a massive focus area. So it's a massive focus area at a master's level and a master's level for the students. So those of you that wants to actually come and do your master's in the department with concentrating on black tax, we will post something on Facebook. Let me just get back to Marianne. So Marianne works in the department. She's young. She's attractive.
No. All I say is I'll get my black tax later for me.
Yeah, I mean, what I want to ask her is, how does she define, as a young person today, because then I'll get back to a bit of difficult questions here. How does she define black tax and how does she experience black tax? Being somebody that has started work and is lecturing and is have to do research on black tax.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak mainly on what has been going on in my life. Like I said, the reason I paid black tax in my house is because there was poor financial planning. Poor financial planning because of poor financial literacy. And that's why I feel black tax should be studied from a perspective of it being a byproduct of poor financial planning. So, but that's my perspective, my experience, that I pay because of the lack of knowledge that I know this sounds very mean, but I do love my parents and I have a lot of respect for them, but I feel like they didn't look to take care of their finances to make plans for, let's say, me and my siblings' education. There were means. I won't say that we grew up like from very harsh conditions, but we grew up from normal conditions. And I saw that the reason we struggled was because my parents, they never looked for retirement planning, investment planning. That was all books and a white people thing. So that's my perspective.
Let me ask the next question. The question is, I hear what the guys have said here, it's intergenerational and all these things. Will it ever stop? Is there a point in time where you now are successful and whatever you say to kids, listen, it stops? Let me just speak out my personal experience. I mean, I grew up in a very poor Afrikaans family, which is no different than probably a lot of the guys here, and probably worse than some of the guys here, because these guys here have struggling success. So I grew up in a very poor Afrikaans family. I was the first generation to study. And my experience was very, very different. Because unlike you, you knew you had to pay. We had loans, we had everything, I had to pay myself. So my question over here is, will it ever stop? Because I don't expect my children now to pay me for what I've done for them. So, I mean, I heard what you said. Yeah, I heard what you said. The question to you is, will it stop? If your kids now are successful, what are you going to say to them, guys?
Greetings. There's someone in the crowd that I'd like to have a word if possible.
We'll get to them now. I want to answer.
Sorry, but I don't know your name, but I remember you from the last event. So,
who's the son to be?
If you could please comment. I mean, he's studied black tax as well, and I think his ideas around where it comes from are completely impressive and also resonate with, you know. So if I can give you my time, I'll absolutely do it. I mean, it's not going to stop, right? Because someone mentioned that it's intergenerational, and the truth of it is that because it is, so it kind of trickles down from one generation to the next, right? That there isn't enough wealth within black families to make it stop. You know what I mean? That in my generation, in my family, I can't kind of add enough to make it stop for the next generation. So that this very quick and short answer is that no, it will not stop.
Okay, I think what we'll do now is, I mean, I can ask these guys questions for the next 20 minutes. We will not get there. What I would like to do is, and guys, you know, I stress this again, I would open up to the floor, but what I would like to ask is keep the questions short and to the point, and be aware of different situations and different viewpoints on this.
No, just share your own viewpoint.
No, sharing with these guys who don't argue with viewpoint that they're wrong. So, because I want to ask a question at the end, and I'll ask the question now so the panel can think about this. And the question is the following. It goes around the concept of that it will be there, it's there. Do you believe, and you don't have to answer it now, I can't ask the question because the audience is going to answer it, but let me state this. Do you believe that it must be tax deductible?
Yes.
Tax deductible?
Yes.
Okay, that's very interesting. No, that's fine. So I will walk around, I'll get the mic. But guys, I think we'll just keep it short and we can get there, okay? Okay, can I just ask, when you ask, just introduce yourself so the panel knows who you are.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. I'm actually also a colleague in I also work at UJ. I'm in the accountancy department, and I'm actually doing my PhD.
That's the problem.
And I'm actually I'm doing my PhD now on this topic, on actually that very same question you just asked. Should it be deductible? So what I'm doing in my study is I'm actually trying to develop a system of tax relief for black tax in South Africa. And in doing that, what I've done is, and also to answer your question partly of whether will it stop, what I've done is I've looked at the sandwich generation, which is an international term, and it's an international perspective of the sandwich of the whole. It's similar to black tax basically. So the global term for it is sandwich generation, and in South Africa it's called black tax. But the concepts are the same. This is where you have someone in the family that is working and they have to send money home or look after their relatives who are dependent on them. But now there are very fundamental differences on black tax and the sandwich generation. And one of them being in the South African perspective is that in South Africa it is, like the guys said, it is man-made. And my argument is that black tax is as a result of colonization and not necessarily apartheid. Apartheid just reinforced it, but the beginning or the birth of it is colonization. In what sense? When the white people landed in South Africa, black people had land, black people had cattle, and there's a study that was done by an economist who said in South Africa, you cannot measure wealth purely on money, but you have to measure it on cultivating assets. And in his study, he found that cultivating assets are actually assets like land and livestock. And in South Africa, when the white people landed and took that away from us, they literally drove us into poverty and enriching themselves. That was the birth of black tax. Okay, now to answer your question, whether it will stop, just quickly. So whether it will stop or not, it will not stop anytime soon in South Africa for us. And I'll tell you why. Because of apartheid and colonization, black people have no assets. We don't have assets. And these assets are assets that, even though a lot of us are now the middle class, I'm also middle class by the way, but you can't, no, it's not something to be excited about. Why? Because our asset base is very thin. We don't have assets. We could not accumulate assets. A lot of us are middle class purely because of the jobs and the salaries that we earn. If a lot of us were to lose our jobs today, we'll be driven back into poverty. And now what is happening with black tax is people are still taking care. I'm taking care of my family. A lot of us are still doing that. In doing that, we are also thinning our own assets, and as a result, our children will also have to take care of us. So it will not stop anytime soon in South Africa.
Let me say this, and I know half of you is going to be very upset about what I'm going to say now. I was no different than you when I came to university. Let me just carry one step further. Let me just be more controversial for a moment, and then we'll get back and you can answer again. But I'd just like to please keep your answer shorter, because we're going to run out of time and I'm not going to keep it long. Let me just be another controversial. If you go and read up about Bangladesh, yeah, you know where Bangladesh is?
Yes, Asia.
What did they do? How did they resolve it?
The government banks.
Bangladesh, what did they do? Do you know? They started in the communities. They started banks within communities. They've now got the most successful bank in the world in the New York High Street. The only bank in New York that's making money.
But they close BBS.
Can I just quickly help you out? And I mean, we must give them an opportunity. You know, the topic black tax, and which is why I did not want comparison of whites and blacks, but to actually tell our different perspectives and why we actually find ourselves where we are. And there's later on in the years, we might talk about the fact that my kids should actually, I want my kids to have a trust fund, and they can't have it because from the word go when I started working, I had to think about my salary, had to pay for both my siblings and also send money back at home so that they can eat, and I also had to carry my own rental. I couldn't even afford a car. So it's a very, very delicate situation that we need to be open about it. And the point is to actually find a solution to this.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Hi, my name is Bani Dele. I live down the road. Okay. Sorry, I actually wanted to just put some historic, maybe you said you didn't want a comparison, but I think it's necessary to make one here. You look at communities, you have the Afrikaans community, the Jewish community, and the Islamic community. The Jewish community has Shevra Kadisha, which is actually an organization that looks after the indigent and those that cannot afford in the community, where community money develops that community. Zakat in the Islamic right? Basically, the Quran says 2% of what you earn is sent to the poor of your community. You have the Afrikaans community, which actually created pretty much a strange social scheme called apartheid, where white socialism was bankrolled on black exploitation. So when you say you was the same, no. I was part of the oppression, you were part of the social support. That's not what I'm talking about.
Fine, I just want to give the other guys a chance as well.
No, I haven't gotten to that point. I know it's a bit triggering when I start speaking like that. Just hold on. The second thing that I wanted to actually say is this. It's quite interesting now with black tax. We call it black tax now. My parents got educated because their parents' siblings climbed up together to create the teachers. The teachers created the academics and business people that we are from our aunts and uncles. So we've created, from a point of being stripped of assets, being forced into these concentration camps, we've created a method of ensuring black HR, human resources are developed, and black money is actually working to develop the black community. And now we go to these white schools, we get told certain things, and we come write interesting stories about black tax, eroding the only source of social support for the black community. That's quite a strange thing for me.
Any comments from the panel then?
Yes.
Nick?
It's just a little comment that I think I agree with two previous speakers that these are two things that are incomparable. We start from nothing. You start from basic wealth, you know? And then what happens with that is that yes. Yeah. Now, what we're saying is that we start from nothing, from scratch. Yes. That's why you cannot compare it. We start from scratch. You are supported by the structures of the government by then, which was apartheid. So, meaning that in African communities, when my father was picking up the papers on the railway line, because that's where he worked, it was not full time. But he would have been a little bit educated than any Afrikaner who was driving a train. So they start from something, and we start from nothing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sabelo Skate here. Just a very quick point. Because you were saying no asset base, it's actually even worse if you consider it. We're actually not even saving enough for our own retirement. So I mean, the spiral is just continuing and continuing and continuing. But a point that I make it a point to raise in every session. A lot of the black tax that we contribute towards, the big ticket items, are items really that we already pay tax for. If you actually consider it, if you live in a suburb, for instance, you've got medical aid, you've got private security, you've got a JoJo tank now, or some sort of, reserve water, you've got a generator, right? And then you've got the same stuff in the Eastern Cape for your folks. You sending chronic medication to them because they can't rely on the clinic or the hospital in the village. How much do we do, and how much do we recognize as voters and citizens about the power of our vote when it comes to election time, and how that can actually help? It's not going to get rid of the problem, but it can actually alleviate. My argument is, how much of that do we actually recognize?
Anyone on the panel, Judy? You want to go? Hold on, let's just answer. There's an on-off button at the bottom.
1 2 1 2. Perfect. I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think part of I suppose the importance of black tax studies, especially at like university level, is that it offers the opportunity to contribute to how government thinks about black tax and how black people are taxed. I mean, part of the essays in the book are really, in some kind of way, are purely literature, right? And so I think the most important work for me, and this is why I asked you to speak, is because I think one of the most important things we have to do is to make sure that we study it at a level where we can sit in government committees and meetings and strategic planning and let them know how it affects black people, that it doesn't only become a kind of thing that we share through stories, but it has data behind it. Yes. And so I completely agree that we need the data to show to the government so that it's completely recognized as a legitimate thing, that it's not kind of just like you don't want to do nice things for your parents.
Yes. I'm very impressed, but the question is, where do you get that data from? How do you determine the size of the
we have two people studying it, so they can let us know how you get that data through.
I would like to, I'm not sure if what I'm about to say is a question or a comment, but it's
I'm sure one of them will be able to answer.
Yeah, it's mostly directed to what you said about her parents, like not yeah. I feel like black tax is called black for a reason. There is no way we cannot compare the two. It is black tax because most people who pay black tax are black people. Another way, I feel like what she said, like slightly makes sense because I also grew up in a family where we didn't really need anything and stuff, but my mom, yeah, what she said makes sense, but even if you go each of this, we as black people don't have to stop paying black tax because it's more than just tax for us. It's like, abazali bethu, guys. I mean, it's our parents. I mean, like as a black child, it's in you to want to give back, even though your parents have enough. I'm just saying, Goti, as much as it is in tax.
So if I'm right, I mean the panel can be out. It's used like the way you got brought up. There's this moral obligation you have to.
No, not really like an obligation, but I feel like what
Social responsibility, I think, is a better word.
No, not even.
Maybe
I want to ask a question. I'm going to add on to this. To a point, I disagree with what she says. It's not a responsibility as such. In the sense whereby my parents, my mom has a PhD in mathematics, my dad is a doctor. But I have 4 siblings above me. Understand? I have 4 brothers above me. I'm not counting my sisters, you know, Africa and the sister's not yours, it belongs to another family. So I have 4 brothers. That's what they say, my sisters don't belong to you. So I have, guys, so I have 4 brothers above me. I'm the last boy, but the bet that I have, I just finished studying. If I send it to my mom now, she'll call me 30 minutes later and tell me she needs more money for Gaviscon. So, to an extent, I feel like our parents also kind of take black tax too far. Too far away, but they don't consider, okay, no, our kids, my son just finished varsity. He's trying to find his feet. So, as I said to you, she says it's a social responsibility as such. Yes, we owe it to our parents, they've done a lot for us. But to an extent, they need to understand that my son just finished varsity. He needs to find his feet. I can't be sending a 5,000 rand.
But you make
5,000.
I don't know. Somebody in the panel. Yeah, that's a very difficult question. You're happy? You don't want to be.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Everybody's trying to respond to me now.
I mean, I think all those conversations are really important, and I think, I mean, the title of the book covers that, right? Is it Ubuntu or is it a burden, right? And so, I mean, of course we can have conversations around how do we kind of negotiate it with our parents and all those things. I mean, I do kind of believe people, I mean, if you read the essays in the book, you can find out that people can be taken advantage of by families and parents and, you know, and communities. But I think the most important thing for me is really that as a black person, however you want to think of it, the point is that the very people that you think are asking you for money all the time are the same people that sold a ship to send you to university. And so I don't know, I mean, I for myself, I can't say no to my mother, I can't say no to my uncle, I can't say no to my neighbor, because I know that in their very small ways they contributed to sending me to university. And so I'm even now, having contributed an essay to the book and having read all the essays, I'm still undecided about, is it a burden or is it Ubuntu?
Can I just ask Brian to comment on what he said? I mean, I think because you're probably very close in the same boat than he is or will be shortly when you are this highly qualified, skilled person. What is your take on what he said?
Okay, can I just confirm, when you buy something for your mom, like for the example that you just gave, the Gaviscon, would you term it as black tax?
No, that's me being a son. Like,
Yeah.
mom, I know my mom has this thing where she can't drink liquid milk. I have to buy the normal powder one.
Yes.
So I'll send her money, I'm like, this is for your milk.
Okay.
Understand? Out of nowhere, she doesn't ask for it. Then she will call me, it's like, yeah, also I need this.
It's not money. I don't know, Judy, can I ask you, what is defined as black tax? I mean, if I listen to him, you know, deep down I think he's complaining because his mom wants him to go to the shopping. What is defined as black tax? Is that defined?
Okay, I think, well, there's something I wanted to say just based on what the young lady next to said. I think she was agreeing with Mary Ann about the issue of financial planning. And well, the people who are paying black tax now come from a totally different place from you, Bonfries, yeah? So yeah. Okay, is it millennials?
Millennials. It is.
Oh, well, I'm not a millennial. Okay, so what I wanted to say, and this is about the financial planning issue, is that for you to plan financially, you need to have the finances. I don't see how a domestic worker and a gardener married can plan financially. It's like what is there to plan around? So it's that, and also so you asked what black tax it really is. I don't even know where the term came from. I really didn't think it was. I'm not gonna call it Bonfries or millennials again, but I did feel like it came from the young ones. So there are different degrees, or there are different levels of black tax. There's buying a goat during a family function or adding more money in the groceries. And so that is the black tax that I think anybody can live with and get over. And there's the black tax of you coming from a family where you don't have parents, you are raised by an aunt in a shack somewhere along the river. When it rains, the shack goes. When it bends, everything bends. You are smart in school, you get a bursary, so you are able to go to university, you study, and you know that you have to go back, and you have to, empower your family. You have to get them out. It's not. That is the real black tax. You dedicate the first 5 years of your working to that, because that is your home. That is where you have to go back.
Sorry, the question I asked, and I hear what you're saying. Succession might be, does it ever stop it?
It's not. Look, it's not going to stop as long as South Africa is what it is. As long as there's systematic racism in the workplace, in everything, in academia, everywhere. As long as black people are not given the same equal opportunities as everybody else. As long as we have to dig ourselves out of a hole, and nothing comes easy to us.
Thank you. I just have a comment and a question. So, just quickly. So my comment would be, I have a particular problem with us black people discussing this thing of black tax like this, because it's all these, like he said, it's all these middle class people that just sit down now and all of a sudden now have a problem with helping out in our communities or helping out our own families. Now my thing is, guys, if we look at Jewish people, we look at Afrikaans people, we look at white people, for them it's so easy for them to continuously go on, create generational wealth and do all of these things because they can and they will be able to help their families. But we come here and we sit and we somewhat low-key try and want to problematize this thing of black tax as in whatever that happens. Just sorry, hold on for a second.
Okay, guys, just hold on.
Sorry? Just hold on for a second. The fact that we come here, I always make this example that my mother and John's mother could be doctors, and the dad our dads are probably lawyers. But the system and the families that we stay in, John's parents, John is he's going to be able to do the most in the world. But I have cousins, I have my mother's sister's kids that still need to go to school, that still need to do all of this. I just have a problem with this thing of where we as the black middle class all of a sudden now think now that we've made it a bit,
now all of a sudden we have a problem with black tax. I think it's very important that we continuously as black people try and conscientize each other to say, guys, can we not or should we not continuously promote this thing of black tax? Can you not rather challenge the government rather to say that we pay double tax? Can we then not pay one tax, which is black tax? Guys, can we not have that conversation, please?
Well, I mean, I have the mic, so I'll go. I completely and vehemently disagree that that's the debate we are having. I think you are completely misunderstanding what the debate is. I don't think anyone here has sat and complained about black tax. I mean, if you read the book, you will get to understand that everyone. I mean, my essay is specifically about this idea of getting pleasure from sending my mother money to buy tiles or buy a door or buy a bed or buy a window. But it's also a negotiation between me having to put petrol in my car and drive to go see my friends in Sandton or wherever, right? So, I mean, I think the one thing that we must all agree on is that I don't think anyone on this panel, I mean, they can answer for themselves, is saying that black tax is a burden for black people and it's such a bad idea that we all kind of hate it, and we hate our parents and we hate all the people that have sent it to universities. The conversation that I think we are having, how does black tax cripple us in the ways that we're trying to negotiate our way in the world? So the idea that you are saying that as black people who've kind of moved into middle class and now we sit here and we absolutely hate black tax and think it's the worst idea, I completely disagree with that, and I absolutely don't know where you got that idea from.
Yeah, sorry, you want to comment? Hold on. I think we need the panel to speak as well, guys. I mean, we're not going to get to everybody. I think that's excessive. Let's go to you. You were still busy around interrupt.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to go back a little. Black tax, maybe it can be a term that the Born Frees came up with, but it doesn't just affect the people who say, okay, they came from very disadvantaged backgrounds. We acknowledge that. We understand that there are different contributing factors to black tax. And that's why I emphasize my perspective is from people who pay black tax because of poor financial planning from their parents.
The child is
so, yeah, we can put the people who came from disadvantaged backgrounds like in a pie chart and distinguish, okay, we have the section on that, we're not going to squash that idea, but then have the section on people for poor financial planning because that is something we can tackle to alleviate. So that's why I kept emphasizing.
What do you think causes black financial planning?
Poor financial planning.
But what causes that?
Lack of knowledge.
Okay, so that, okay, can we, you know, I just wanted to correct the gentleman there. You know, it's that, you know, we are all here, sitting here as black middle class, we are complaining, we want to problematize this thing called, you know, black tax. I think there's a fundamental mistake you're making there. First of all, I'm not complaining. I'm talking about specific situations. First of all, we do not have that wealth. Let's start there.
Yes.
Fortunately, you might have, you know, because of different generations, you might have parents that are lawyers, doctors, etc. You know, then they speak the same sort of language. But if you're languishing in debt, to get a loan so that you can go and bury somebody back at home, and nobody's got money to do that. They're looking at you. You've got your own rental to pay here. You have to travel all the way to the Eastern Cape, come back with absolutely nothing. That for me is a burden. and we should be talking about it as to how do we correct that. We cannot continue working backwards. Hence, we're fine. I'm fine with a situation where I am fixing something, a leaking roof back at home. I'm fine with taking my siblings, through education. I'm investing there. They would at least take other people out of the cycle. My problem is when you say we problematize this thing. We think we are better now, we're middle class. No, my credit rating goes down every time I go and look for a loan. Therefore, I end up without having any assets so that I can have proper wealth. I end up just funding a system, a situation where I'm just working backwards. That is what we're talking about here, and that is what black tax to me means. Ubuntu, yes, I get it. I don't mind when my mother calls me and say, yo, I'm definitely 200 rand of ABC. Those are small things. I'm talking about, we're talking black tax, we're talking about serious things where people actually have depression. They get into debt, they have serious mental issues because of debt, serious monies. People lose, and others cry in corners. We can no longer be having a situation where people pretend that they do actually have wealth, whereas they do not have, because they are carrying so much weight that it's actually destroying them.
Thank you. And just firstly, before I comment on this, I wanted to just say to you that the comment you made on her attractiveness was, was out of line. We are having an academic argument, and I'd like to just, I'd just like to say that made us, as someone who could be my daughter, made me very uncomfortable. So, yes. I don't need
let me say this to you. If I offended you, I really apologize. It wasn't the point of offending it.
Can I also say that I wasn't offended? I didn't take it in
I hear
I just want to acknowledge that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just that when we are having these kinds of discussion, we don't want to bring that into the table as well. We're here to have a discussion and not to bring that on. So I just wanted to comment on that. With regard to this, I wanted to also ask the panel the question of how do we, I remember a few years ago, I was doing some work on burial societies, and there were very interested parties which were coming from private sector on the issue of burial societies. We were doing social science studies. And how does this black tax thing, how do we come to a situation where right now, 10, 20 years later, burial societies which were organic from the community, located in it was around making means out of no means by our parents. It was something developed in the community in response to a very particular socio-political situation, which was apartheid and exclusion, financial exclusion. So people formulated, now the banks own those things. They've eroded what is in the community. People are now, the banks are now the ones who have ownership and are providing, who knows, most probably my children are young, when they look, they'll think burial societies came from FNB or APSA or whatever the case. How do we own this problem that we are saying, and people are, you were talking about, I thought it was a really interesting example, I didn't get more about the bank in Bangladesh. I thought that sounded interesting.
Let me just kind of step back what I said, and I think I need Nick to answer as well, because it looks like he looks like a horse on the July handicap that wants to get out of the stable.
I wanted to finish the question. So I thought the example we were giving on Bangladesh was quite interesting, because here was a community, yes, there was then an issue, they owned it, they then produced something out of it, and it is the community that ultimately, I'm hoping the story goes like that in there. So how do you, with this, as we debated and perhaps find solutions involve government, who knows, and other players, so that once again, we don't see this going into private hands, into, again, reproducing the very same things that we're saying we don't want to reproduce, where we find it now, it's a bank issue, or it's the, government is. So how do we do it differently? That's my question. Thanks.
Can I just say one thing? The example I used in Bangladesh. What happened was what I think what you will call burial societies, but it was slightly bigger and different. It was the sense that in Bangladesh, what they did was this. I can't remember his name now. You went to the villages, like in the Eastern Cape and wherever you go, to these small villages, and you got all the women together. And the woman ran, I don't know what he called it, but in my frame of reference, and I apologize once again if I'm wrong, in my frame of reference it would be like a stokvel. So he got the woman to run a stokvel. So in that stokvel, what happened is the community would come to these ladies that was in charge of the stokvel, and they would make loans and borrow, what you guys do. And eventually what happened is that stokvel became so powerful that stokvel converted to a community bank. And then what this guy did, I can't remember his name, you can Google it, he won the Nobel Prize for this in whatever. He went around Bangladesh and he started this thing. And he now started a bank in New York, in the main street in New York. And the truth about the bank is, it is the only bank, a retail bank in New York, that is actually profitable. Because the community that stays there, that's Bangladeshis or whatever you call them, they actually support this thing. So I think I'll let them answer your question. So deep down, my view on this would be, that was the community that got together and they helped them. And that's how it started. I hear what you're saying, but I want to hear the question. Answer first. Go.
What was the difference? Mama, I think, earlier on when we were on 702, I actually said, I would support, I would rather put money in a stokvel. If the old lady says, we've got this is what we're doing. I'd rather, do that so that, they manage their own wealth so that we continue, to just have wealth that is generated through that. Issues of burial societies, they've been working quite well, and like you are saying, they just ended up paying in the main banks. And the idea of a mutual bank, I think, was around that factor, that you get people to club together as a co-op, then they put money together, and then those things happen. But things changed somehow, and I have no idea why that actually changed and why we ended up with the main banks being the preferred places. And also there started being some robberies when Kaufner's Fulimani, all of a sudden somebody has lost their money, etc. So it's also based on an issue of trust. But I think, part of the solution is around issues of like mutual banks and communities coming together and putting money together. And then that solves situations of so what do? We give, and they complete that. We do have to get to that point.
Okay, here we go. Gentleman with the red.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernard Meyer. Before I actually speak about black tax, allow me to actually answer you on the issue of Bangladesh, because I'm realizing you're speaking more about it. So the difference between Bangladesh and South Africa is that when it came to South Africa, we had a special type of colonization, meaning that we actually colonized twice as Africans in South Africa. Firstly by the British, secondly by the Afrikaners. So therefore, and this colonization didn't just come by taking material things of land and cattle. It also came with education, meaning that we were also colonized mentally so. So that's why the youth of today in South Africa is fighting to say, let us decolonize South Africa, the South African educational system. The reason why I'm actually stating this is that if you actually focus on the South African banks and you realize where most of their money is actually coming from, you'll find out it's coming from stokvels, which is created by our mothers. They invest all this money in these banks which are owned by foreigners and also these wealthy white people in South Africa. But there are banks like VBS. Today in VBS, if you go focus on the scandal of VBS and look around, it was just parents on their individual state saying we're saving our own money, but it was not money of stokvels. So where is the problem exactly? It's this thing of mental colonization. And it's going to take us approximately 100 years for us to actually fight that thing so that we can start building our own banks and all of that. But that was just me answering you. Now I'm coming to black tax. So now let's come to this thing of black tax. You see, with black tax, it's not an issue of saying it's a responsibility, it's a culture, it's a what. I'll speak about myself personally. I come from a household where my mother is a teacher. But for her to actually start, when she started teaching, it took her 11 years before she could actually become a professional teacher. But before she was a professional teacher, she used to be a vendor at the school which she's currently teaching at now. So when she was teaching at that school, we had a family which was doing fine in terms of business. Not that fine, but they were doing fine. My mother had no house, we had no place to live at. So we had to go live with that family, which was my aunt and her husband. So we lived with them. By the time my mother actually started working, the business was not going well. And it kept on going down forever and forever like that. Today, within the family, they're the most poorest of them all. So there's no way I can actually neglect that family because they help us during difficult times. As far as I'm studying now, I know once I graduate, I'm actually going to invest in that family. And also there are issues of funerals. The funerals, you say we come from the same background. I totally disagree with that. Our funerals are totally different. We cater for 100 people. It's an insult for you to say that. Another statement I'm going to make, you go to a bank today, take a loan of saying you want to start a business. They are going to agree because of your skin card. The only loan I can get for a bank is the one which I'm saying I'm going to start. They'll give me 50,000. 50,000, it's still short for 1 year. I still have 3 more years to go and start. So therefore those things are not working. And we'll continue with this thing, but it's fine. We'll continue the debate. I'm still here.
I think for me, I like the example of Bangladesh because it's actually something that I actually did my master's on. So Bangladesh, like South Africa, was colonized 3 times, not once. There was an entire stripping of identity and enforcing of an external religion in the population of Bangladesh, leaving them in a space where about 5 years ago, the poorest South African was 5 times richer than the average Bangladeshi. So I think at the times when we really doing a comparison, we really need to spend some time really looking around so that we can really make really good comparisons. Because once we actually, what you're doing now, for me, who's actually been into the country, studied the country, is denigrating an entire struggle of a people that is actually over 400 years. I think we need to really be careful around the languaging of our politics.
Okay. Okay. For me, it's just this, actually. It's about black tax, because we have to come back to the topic. It's about this book called Black Tax.
Buy the book.
Yeah. To me, for instance, the book, it's all about opening a debate. And I appreciate the debate. Everywhere we go, we learn new things, you know. I've learned a lot today. I didn't know about the study of Bangladesh. Now it interests me. But what interests me more is to see the way the book has opened. The debate was there, but now we've got a foundation of where we have to talk when we talk about black tax. And we use the term, the word black tax very advisedly, in a way that we know is derogatory somehow to some of us. That's why the essays, when you read them, some of them are completely against the term. But that's only the working term.
Oopsie, sorry guys.
The difference.
So, what I wanted to say is that because we are choosing here, the book is there. You can buy as many as you want. We will sign it.
I was being kicked out.
Okay, guys, just wait. I mean, obviously, let's go to the power factor.
Yeah, just.
And I think what we need to do is just close the question. I know there's a lot of questions you want to ask. Guys, 1 minute. Just 1 minute. I know there's a lot of questions. The powers also, I think, if it's good with what's done, you can close. You're happy that we close on this point. I think Nick highlighted the fact that it's a different experience for everybody. And I think deep down, that experience we all need to internalize and then respect the way that we actually live our own experience thereof. Any other questions from the panel in closing?
Thank you very much for your contributions. I really appreciate it.
Okay, guys, thanks for coming. I don't know, power's off, so I don't know what's outside, but please be careful and drive safely.
Break in the dark, people.